Galimera, Galispera, Galinichta, no matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be. Thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. For those who are going to correct the date on the display currently, sure, fine, go ahead, do that. It is correct on the video, and I do have video to prove it. So, here we go, kids. We won, but I'm sure you're all going to shout about the lineup. Let's go. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. That entire segment was completely muted. So what happened was this. Hurricane Hillary's still here, Super Kev. She just blew through the front window. I'm trying to get the air in the house recirculated. The lamp just got kicked over. So there was a hurricane. There was a earthquake yesterday. There were all sorts of things. But you're here, Super Kev, Super Kevin Campbell, back in the house, my podcast brother from another mother. No sound on anything this morning, Kev.
It's
Technology.
all right. Listen, we make it work. Squaddies at ease. Let's do this. Another W. This is what matters. At ease.
This is what matters. And my hot mess of a self is ready to introduce our very special guest today, who is joining us post-game, but also has an epic new book that I have been perusing with much engagement over the last week or so. And we're happy to bring in on Monday Madness for the first time, breaking him in, a Highbury Squad virgin, Mr. Charles Watts. Welcome.
That's quite a welcome. Hello, guys. How are you? All good?
Hi, Charles. You're right.
We're good.
Heart rate coming back down after that last half an hour.
Okay, so let's start. Okay, Charles, fine. Why can't
I was comfortable, to be honest. If I'm honest with you.
Well, yeah.
I was.
I looked at my watch. I'm sitting here watching it with my dad. I looked at my watch and checked my heart rate, and it was 115.
I love that.
Oh, jeez.
But seriously though, Kev, I don't think I feared it as much as even when Zaha was playing, but there was definite jeopardy in that second half, monumentally. Why can't we close out games like in a normal?
It's that simple. We don't finish teams off. We are not at the height where we want to be right now. Had a couple of chances. I thought Eddie played pretty well today. Just missed the finish. He had a couple of chances. One hit the post, one he's dinked over the bar, etc. But I thought he had a decent game. Won us the penalty again because of his sharpness. You know, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Eddie missed chances," but we don't win. If Eddie's not there, we don't win the game. Probably so. You know, we've got to take the rough with the smooth sometimes. This is still a work in progress, Sophie. This Arsenal side, everybody getting to know each other. This is only the second game. But, you know, I keep saying it. The most important thing is win your games when you're not playing so great. Because there's going to be a time where we need to be better against the better teams.
Okay, so Charles, I was posting to everyone who was coming in early in chat, and good evening already to 200 of you live here. We're going to talk about Charles's book in just a little bit, but of course we played tonight against Crystal Palace. Never easy. under the lights on a Monday night, especially under Mikel Arteta. But Charles, I don't know if it's because of some of the great football and the sexy football we played last season. I feel like now as Arsenal fans, we're kind of conditioned to want performances, but also results are super important. It's a London derby. It is a Monday night. Everyone's played. There's pressure on the team to get a result. What's your take on tonight? Because for me, I felt it was very professional. I don't even think the sending off was a sending off, and we'll get to that. I just think it's sometimes getting a result is more important than how you perform. Talk us through what you saw a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. First and foremost, look, I think it's a fantastic result. It's a 1-0 win at Selhurst Park. You take that all day long. I go back to the end of last season and that title run in, Man City went there and won 1-0 with a Haaland penalty with about 10 minutes to go. And that's all you need at Selhurst Park. And I thought, obviously, look, the sending off completely changed things. I thought with, after the goal, with half an hour to go, I thought Arsenal looked really, really comfortable. They were dominating possession. Palace weren't laying a glove on them at that point. And then the sending off obviously changed things completely. I was a little bit disappointed with how Arsenal approached things after the sending off. I thought they just sat back very, very deep and invited Palace on a little bit. And I thought even with 10 men, they had the capability of going forward and causing Palace a little bit more problems and still maybe finishing the game off and getting a second goal. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. But look,
Charles, then when we talk about Arteta being ruthless and unforgiving and, he's just all the way around turnkey, this kind of, George Graham-esque, Pep Guardiola-esque type manager, why are we a little soft in the latter part that you're talking about? Why can't we be as ruthless in terms of the culture and the philosophy that he's created?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think at times they have been certainly at times last season, but this is a different Arsenal team. I think we're just going to have to accept that it's not going to click straight away. We're seeing new systems, new players, very new systems, in fact, to what we're all used to. And I think the players are getting used to each other. I thought it was good signs today. I thought Declan Rice played very well. And I think that ruthlessness will come, but it's still a work in progress. I think that's where Arsenal potentially are still behind Manchester City. City win that game probably a little bit more comfortably than Arsenal do. Even with 10 men, they see that out a little bit more comfortably than Arsenal do. But Arsenal aren't quite there just yet. But it's nothing to. I'm sitting here very happy right now with a 1-0 win and a backs to the wall type final 20 minutes. It's 1-0 to the Arsenal, isn't it?
Yeah, especially the reason we beat Palace, I want to say at Palace, guys, is a very good friend of our show. And I know you know him well too, Charles. Magic Mike from the Gooners pod was not there this season. So we won the game and all is good in the world. But Super Kev, it's flooding in, as you can imagine. Questions for you and Charles, excuse me, on the lineup. One of the things I've always posed to Kev, Charles, as well, is Mikel is a little bit like Pep. He's got that genius chip and he's a chemist. So he likes to go into the laboratory and see what's happening in his tubes and Bunsen. But could he fire up on the Bunsen burner? And this season, it seems to be Thomas Partey at right back. Kev, talk me through this a little bit. And do you understand why some Arsenal fans just don't get it at this point? Why he's tinkering in the manner in which he is right now?
It's ball domination, and that's what we had. When you think about the game, we dominated the ball. Crystal Palace are a decent side, so they're going to have some of the game. Let's not take that away from Crystal Palace. They're a decent side, but it's all for ball domination. The same way you see Zinchenko dominate from the left-hand side and move into midfield, he's just doing it from the right-hand side. So I don't know what all the fuss is about. The bottom line is he wants to make sure we dominate the ball and suffocate the opposition, and that's what we've done. Yeah, we missed chances, but Palace didn't really trouble us until obviously Tomiyasu got sent off, and then obviously we sat a lot deeper. Probably solely because we're a man light and players are getting a little bit tired. But, there were some adjustments made where Jorginho came on, etc. And I thought we handled it perfect. We handled it perfectly well after that. Ball domination is so much, especially when you're 1-0 up. So, again, We're not quite got that cutting edge up top yet. And, that's something we're going to have to work on. But if the opposition can't get the ball, they can't score.
Charles, what's your take on what Kev's saying as well? I mean, let me give you some stats. Palace had 13 shots. We had 14, 2 on target for them, 3 for us, 46% possession, 54 for us. Passes, 480, 413 for the home team. Accuracy, 86%, 85 for us. 10 fouls for the Gunners, 14 for the Eagles, 2 yellows for them, 1 for us. Of course, the red card, which we'll get to, 2 offsides, 8 corners for the Arsenal, 1 for Palace. Ball domination works, of course, when you win the game. What is your take, though, Charles? You've been so close to it. We're going to get to your book in a little bit here. Is Mikel tinkering just because he knows he can, or is he really trying to figure out a system for this season based on the talent that he has? Why are you playing Thomas Partey at right back? Like, seriously, why are you doing that? I know Kev's saying ball domination, but why?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to sit here and give you a definitive answer on it, but I just can't right now. I'm surprised. I wasn't expecting it. Even looking at what he did in pre-season, the way he was setting things up in pre-season, there was no real hint that this was coming. We saw it a little bit at the end of last season, obviously, but during pre-season, it still looked like Arsenal were going to play with Ben White at right back, Gabriel and Saliba as the 2 centre-backs and go again. So it is a bit of a surprise. I don't think he's doing it just because he can. Mikel doesn't operate like that. He's clearly, thought this out, and he's got a very strong tactical reason for doing it. I was expecting Gabriel to come back into the side tonight. I could see why he did it at home against Forest because of the way Forest were going to set up. And like Kev says, it was all about dominating the ball, getting extra players into the central areas. Ben White would still go on the overlap. Thomas would come in midfield. I didn't really see Thomas Partey playing as a right back today. Most of the time when I saw Thomas Partey on the ball, he was in the central area still. So he's not playing like Ben White did last season, going on the overlap and getting past Bukayo Saka. So it's a clear tactic. It's to try and flood those central areas and dominate possession. And I think back to a game a couple of years ago at Watford when Arsenal won, but we're hanging on a little bit. And Mikel sat there in a press conference and said to us afterwards, I'd love to just suffocate this game with 300,000 passes and not let them have a sniff. And when I see this, I go back to that quote and I think, that's what his plan is here, is just to absolutely wrestle games off teams by dominating the ball and packing that midfield area and winning games that way. We're not seeing it really pay off yet in terms of performances, but I think another couple of months down the line, and it could well be. But personally, look, I'd rather see Thomas Partey in a midfield area, and I'd rather see Ben White playing as a right back. But I can, Mikel's far smarter than I am when it comes to football. So I bow to his superior knowledge.
Super Kev, Charles brings up a good kind of riffs off the point of performances versus results, and you and I talked about towards the end of last season that results were more important than performances. Close it out, win the league. In this instance, at the beginning of the season where we excelled last year, and you and I have talked about kind of that American sports, get to the playoffs mentality, i.e. get to April, close out the deal, over an 8-week period. Do you think it's okay right now that performances aren't great for the manager to kind of figure out this team and where it's going? And at the same time, when you get results, that fine. But had Palace nicked an equaliser today, maybe the narrative would have been a little bit different.
Yeah, of course it would have been different but we don't live on ifs, do we? The fact of the matter is Arsenal won the game and Mikel Arteta still has to work it out. The key to it all is results. Because you know what? You can play as well. You could look back if you want and talk about last season. Last season don't matter. This is a new season. Arsenal have to win games. Arsenal are in win now mode. And yeah, we're not at the fluid best like we were. But you know what? The key is winning games. We've got to win games. Going to Crystal Palace, tough place to go. Another London derby. We come out on top. And fans could talk about, this is this and that's that, and we're not as penetrating as we would like. Of course, we'd love to be more penetrating. We'd love to be swamping teams 4-5-0. But the bottom line is that is not reality. The reality of it is teams set up to stop us. I thought Crystal Palace played pretty well first half, sitting back and not letting no gaps.
Agree.
They defended well. So we had to take what was given, and we got a penalty. We won the game. We move on. It's not always going to be this way. And you know what? It's on another day, Eddie could have had a hat trick. But again, it's not to be. It's always tough. Winning games in the Premier League is hard.
Yeah.
People got to remember that. People just think because Arsenal turn up, you're going to win 3-0. It doesn't work that way. Arsenal have to graft, and we needed a sharp bit of play by, I think it was Martinelli and Eddie, to win the penalty, get us 1-0, and we move on. No problem.
I think just touching on what you said there, Kev, I think that's a good point about sort of harping on about last season. I think we've got to kind of put that to the back of our minds.
Great point, Charles.
I think
great point.
You're not always going to start. It's very rare that a team starts the season like Arsenal started the season last season, just clicking like that and looking as good as they did last season. Obviously, Brighton have had a good start this season, but it's very rare that you do that. You always sort of play yourselves into a season, don't you? And, last year was a bit of a one-off, I think, the way that Arsenal just hit the ground running. I never expected that to happen this time around. And so I'm not surprised we're not seeing that same fluidity and, gung-ho type football that we saw last season. I think it's a different system. Everyone's getting used to it, and we're going to have to adjust and take a little bit of time. Patience is going to be needed.
And Charles, I totally agree with that. And it's 2 games in, right? And we've actually, Timber's injured now. However, that creates another pickle for the manager, right? So he's probably plotting and planning. He's got his blueprints from the tour in the US, how he's going to map out the first few games without injuries. What does the contingency plan look like with injuries? And this performance versus results thing, and I want to harp on about it a little bit tonight because I think it's really important. There are so many people in live chat, and there's almost 600 of you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Hit that like button. Please do. Because City, for example, Charles, the last 2 seasons started horrifically. If you remember, even last season, some people were saying, "Oh, they've got Haaland, and they're not even going to win the league." Talk us through that a little bit in terms of, because it does touch on your book. By the way, the book is amazing, and it really does detail the journey and the thinking of Arteta. And through your book, and you talk about the revolution of him. What is in his mind right now from the experience you've had covering the team, covering him, writing the book, and looking at this from the perspective of, okay, this is now my 3rd full season, and I really have to beat that team and get results against this team. What do you think that looks like in his mind?
I think he would have done a lot of thinking this summer. Well, he definitely did do a lot of thinking this summer. It really hurt him the end of last season, and he went away, had a bit of time with the family, and then came back. And the key thing was trying to think, how do we go to that next level? How can we do it? Because we were brilliant last season, and it still wasn't enough. So how do you go that extra yard and beat a team like Manchester City? And I think the signings that we've seen this summer really pointed to the next evolution of Arteta's team. All 3 players who came in, you put that in the starting 11, it very much changes what we've become used to with Arsenal. You put Timber in, unfortunately what's happened with him, but you could put him in and it changes. If you're playing him at right back, you've not got the overlapping Ben White that we're used to. Suddenly you've got an extra player coming into midfield. Havertz is completely different to Granit Xhaka, and Thomas Partey and Declan Rice are different players. If Rice got the nod set, you look at those 3 signings, and he's trying to evolve Arsenal in a different way to what we saw from him last season. Last season wasn't enough, and he spent the summer trying to work out how he can get this team better to compete. Maybe not better playing football, as in playing, this free-flowing football that excited us all last season, but how do you win? Because that's the most important. That's what drives Mikel Arteta on more than anything. It's not pretty football. Obviously, that's a bonus, but it's winning. Everything he does is about winning. And that's what this summer was about. And that's what these new signings are about. And I think that's what this kind of new Arsenal could well be about this season. It might not be as pretty as what we saw last season. It might not be as exciting, but it's about winning and getting the job done and being strong. Yeah, exactly that. And I think if you're going to beat Manchester City, that might be the way that you want to go. And that might be what we're seeing already from this kind of new look Arsenal team.
Yeah, it's a great point. And towards the end of the season, Charles, Kev and I were like, we don't care how we win. We just want the 3 points. Let's just win and win the league. We don't care what the performances look like at this point. And I think a lot of the times Arsenal fans, Super Kev, want it to look sexy all the time, and it just doesn't, because sometimes a situation occurs in a match, the opposition can make a mistake, and, you know, the Arsenal can benefit from that. And we certainly did. And this player I really wanted to bring up again, because I've been super critical, Charles. Kev has been critical also, but in a complimentary way, i.e., Eddie is needed right now. Is Eddie going to be the guy that takes us between now and May? We don't think so. But Kev, once again, Eddie comes in and I think does a professional job, and his job, and exactly what we need him to do. Some people were criticizing him for missing the shot that hit the post. I actually thought, holy crap, what a great effort that was to actually get the shot off in a difficult situation. So once again, I think he comes in, he does a decent job. As a striker, talk me through that a little bit, because missing chances again, however, an opportunity comes up through the forward line, we get the penalty, it works. But he worked effortlessly again today.
I thought he linked the play well. I thought that a lot of the chances he made himself. That one where Saka gets wins the ball in midfield and it comes through to Eddie and he turns the defender, hits the post. I thought that was really good play. Second one, he should do better, but he's trying to just dink it over the goalkeeper. Doesn't do so well. Smart play, quick thinking to win the penalty second half. I thought Eddie worked hard. I thought Eddie done really well as a striker, linking the play, etc. Anybody who has a go at Eddie right now must have an agenda, because part of your job as a striker is to try and score goals. So you're going to miss some. But the key is, can you be a difference maker? Eddie was a difference maker today. He got up and got a penalty. Our other guard scored a penalty. We win the game 1-0. Sometimes you're going to get goals, sometimes you're not. But the key is, can you make a difference? Can you keep the defense honest? And I thought Eddie done well. Listen, a lot of people just don't like the fact Eddie Nketiah is up top for Arsenal. But you know what? They're the people who've got a problem. I've got no problem with Eddie playing. I've got no problem with how we performed today. I thought Eddie performed well. And do you know what? There was someone who put before, how could you say Eddie played well and he missed 3 chances? Why can't you play well and miss 3 chances? What? It's absolutely ridiculous, right? Yeah. So again, people just want to lump onto Eddie, but Eddie done well today as far as I am concerned. Yeah, Eddie is a backup and Jesus will be number 1. But you know what? Eddie's played 2 games and we've won both.
Yeah, he won the penalty as well. I mean, he's the reason, Charles, as well, why you know, we won the penalty. And one of the things, again, I'm interweaving your book a little into the game here, is because you take everyone on a journey, like from when Arteta was a player to the decision to make him manager, to the trust the process, to commitment, to respect, to all of these different things in your book. And Hayland is a very, I think, fundamental factor to our team. And a lot of the times when I've talked about having a British core in a team, that is born out of England and is British, some folks were like, oh, well, no, we lived through a French Revolution. Under Wenger, we were a globalized, beautiful core of, you know, all these international flavors. And there's something I love about this, Charles. And I think that's okay, isn't it? And has Eddie done, he's not the long-term option. What's your take on Eddie and the young folks here who I think have put Arsenal on their shoulders a little bit in the last couple of seasons?
Well, they have 100%. Look, first of all, I thought Eddie played really well tonight. Yes, he missed a couple of chances. I agree. I thought the first one he made himself and was very, very unlucky. I thought it was really good striker's play. Second one, obviously, he should have done better. He just tried to dink it and he got too much of a heavy touch on it. But I thought he played really well. He's played 2 games for Arsenal this season. He scored in the first game. He's won the penalty that won the game in the second. And I think he's doing everything that Mikel Arteta is asking of him at the moment. He's not first choice. He's not number one, but at the moment he's filling in, and he's filling in really well, just like he did last season. And Kev's right. I think some people just don't like the fact that Eddie is starting up front for Arsenal. They want an £80 million striker doing it. And he gets a lot of grief for that because he's not an £80 million signing. And I think he's doing really, really well. And you're talking about Haaland there, and it's such a vitally important part of what Arsenal are about and the identity that they've created. And some of, you go back again, sort of going back to the book, and I remember the really dark times, even when Mikel was there, and that his first full season coming up to Christmas, when I remember they went to Everton in I think it was just before, there's a match before Christmas, and they lost, and they were about 16, 5 points off the relegation zone. And then Chelsea was next on Boxing Day. And that's when Mikel turned to Emil, he turned to Bukayo, he turned to the HLM boys, who basically came in, picked up this club that was on its knees and carried it on their shoulders for over the second half of the season, and gave the energy and the life that seemed to basically have been sucked out of the club. And they just deserve so much credit for that. I'd love to see Emil getting more game time than he is. I thought Mikel probably should have used him more in the second half of last season than he did, and I hope we see him more this season. Bukayo, obviously, I don't need to say anything more about. He's just a special, special talent. And just having these homegrown players, it's just that connection's so important. Mikel loves that word, connection, and that is what I go back to Kevin's days. I was a young kid in the terraces at Highbury, watching Kev, watching Merce, Tony, everyone, Rocky. And it was just that they're Arsenal boys through and through. And you just immediately get that connection to the team, and it makes it very, very special. And that's what this team has. And, long may that continue.
Totally agree with that. And there's a reason why Arsenal today, Super Kev, did you see they put out the Crystal Palace highlights? You featured in the bruised banana.
I saw. Great times. Great. Crystal Palace used to be one of our favourite games because obviously a lot of the boys going back to South London, and obviously playing against Wrighty, Brighty, Andy Gray, all the John Solarco, all them boys, good lads. So it was always a good game, and we always tended to do well.
Always won. You had him on toast back then, home and away.
Loads of years,
yeah, big time.
Yeah, it was an old-fashioned barbecue back then. It was amazing.
I saw that. I saw the clip of your left foot volley against him in '92 today, Kev.
So good.
Yeah, that's a collector's item, that one.
Left, but Kev, wow, though, seriously. I mean, you weren't bad. I'm just saying out loud, you weren't bad. Just a little bit.
Listen, scoring for the Arsenal is so important. Winning with the Arsenal is so important. So this is why I'd say to the fans, you can be critical of whatever, but when Arsenal win, accept it and move on. Don't. How could you be upset about players when we win?
No one in that away end will be leaving that ground disappointed tonight. It's just everyone, sitting at home watching it. You're at that match and you are feeling every single kick, living every single kick with 10 men for half an hour to go. You walk out of that game singing your heart out, absolutely delighted.
But Charles, I think that's a great point. But also, I do think that. So I'm not at the game tonight, but I've walked away from there feeling like it's a London derby, it's Crystal Palace, it's a new history with them, it's away on a Monday after everyone's played, and we've walked away with 3 points after getting a player sent off. And when there's 35 more of these situations to go, I say get in, get out. It's a result. It's 3 points. You keep up with everyone so early. So let me ask you this as well, Charles, then, because, one of the things we always talk about on the show is the new signings settling in versus who's there already. And it's been a topic of conversation already because, of course, Timber's injured. I think Rice showed lots of sublime moments tonight, and he is a very class player. Havertz is one of these divisive, polarizing characters. And you would say that Timber and Rice already have become, I don't know, semi-cult heroes at the Arsenal. And for some reason, this fella is just vilified. And again tonight, and some people may think I'm crazy and don't agree with me, but I think he did his job. I think he did his job, and he did his job well. What do they want from? What is it people are expecting from Havertz? Do they want him to be like this Messi-esque, sexy super player? I don't know what it is, but for me, in terms of what we've been missing connectivity-wise, and I think he doesn't get enough respect of what he does off the ball, Charles. And again, I saw a lot off the ball tonight, even without tactical cameras. Talk me through this a little bit. What do you see with Havertz, and knowing Arteta and spent time with him? Why do you think he likes him so much? And is he a missing link? A lot thrown at you there on Havertz.
Oh, is it? I don't know if he's a missing link. I think Mikel will certainly be happy with how Havertz played today. He won't be disappointed by what he saw from Havertz today. He would have done exactly kind of what he wanted. But in terms of how I view Havertz myself, no, the jury's still out for me on him. I think it's hard because he's coming in to replace a player who played so well last season. He was so important last season. He scored key goals last season, was a real leader. And it's a big ask. And then you're coming in from Chelsea as well, which also brings a lot of baggage when you come into Arsenal. And I always felt, looking at this signing, the other two, we're going to have, they were going to be afforded all the time they needed to settle in and adjust with the fan base. Havertz wasn't. He was going to need to hit the ground running and if he didn't, people were going to get on his back. And that's already kind of what's happening, because he's done all right the first couple of games, but he's not done anything particularly special. And already people are getting on his back and looking at that position and thinking, why aren't we playing Trossard there? And I don't really disagree with them at this stage. I think I'd have kind of preferred to give Havertz a little bit of time to bed in and maybe not start him for the first couple of games. And because I'm a big fan of Trossard, and I think Trossard can play there.
Right.
But I'm not having a go. I think we just got to be patient with Kai Havertz. He's coming to a new club. He's got to settle in, a new way of thinking. I spoke with Tomiyasu. I sat down with Tomiyasu last season, and I said to him, what do you think the difference has been this season compared to last season? And he just said, we just understand Mikel. We knew what he wanted us to do last season, but we couldn't quite do it. Now we understand it more. We're used to it, and we can do it. And I think, Havertz is just going to take a little bit of time to adjust. Some do it quickly. Some people take longer. And I think Havertz is going to fall into that latter category. But I think he's going to be proved to be a good signing.
Kev, what do you think tonight? Because there's always the manager view and the fan view. And last season, we kind of pointed those out when they happened. You kind of helped me manage my Martinelli process when he was coming back from this injury. And I'm like, he's such a star. He should be playing. 840 of you in live chat right now. You can let me know what you think as well. When you see Trossard. So these are the things that drive fans crazy. Like when you see Trossard and the impact he makes. And we talk about players who work in the shadows. Is Havertz a shadow worker? Is Trossard pissing Mikel off and we don't know about it? The dude can't get a game. Talk me through it, Kev.
No, I just think it's Mikel Arteta is going to utilise his squad. When you look at Crystal Palace are a physical side. And I'm not saying that Trossard can't handle himself. I just think you look at Arsenal and we're a big side with Havertz in it. Havertz, he can manipulate the ball, he can handle the ball, and he can play between the lines nicely. I thought he had a decent game without being spectacular. His first two games have been decent without being spectacular. 2 wins, I'll take it. It's going to take him time. Yes, it is. It's going to take this Arsenal squad time to understand exactly how to get the best out of each other. Because let's be honest, they've only played 2 games in the Premier League together. But I really believe Kai Havertz will be a star for Arsenal moving forward. Yeah, is it going to take time? Of course it's going to take time. And there might be times where Kai Havertz don't play and Trossard's in the lineup. But that's what Mikel Arteta has to do. He has to now manage the squad, especially when the Champions League comes around. There's going to be a proper flexibility in this squad that's going to be needed. And do you know what? Maybe Gabriel should be the one who people should be talking about, as opposed to Trossard. He should probably be the one who's thinking, hold on a minute, why ain't I starting? But again, you win 2 games. That's what it's about. It's about winning games.
One of the things that comes up so often, Charles, when Kev and I talk about is how we've not had depth and that how we need competition for every position. And now we're kind of getting there. You know, if you just kind of calm the chaos and mute the fans just a little bit, including me, you can see that Arsenal now have a squad, and maybe it's still 2 players shy to challenge for the league. And I think one of the things, we fall in love with players often and we want players to play every game because that's the type of team and club we've been. We haven't had the City beauty. We haven't had the United's, when in the glory years they've had. We haven't had Liverpool's luxuries when they won the league and the Champions League. We've always operated on this 11 players who are so good, and we rely on them. And Mikel did also. But now even he understands that he needs a squad to create success, right? And that's going to disappoint people week in, week out. Is it not?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think, Arsenal, there's an unpredictability about Arsenal now, I think, with the players that they've got. And you go into a team, you go into a match, and I think you're going to be second guessing what the starting 11 is every single match, basically. And last season, I think we could have all had our eyes shut and say who was going to play, what system it was going to be. If everyone was fit, you knew who was playing. You don't know that now at all. And, I wasn't surprised Havertz played tonight. I thought he would, because what Kevin was talking about was going to be a physical game. Palace are a big team. I thought he'd play. I thought he might actually play instead of Eddie Nketiah and be the central striker for this one. And yeah, that unpredictability that when you look at all the signings Arsenal make, they're all so versatile now. They can all play in several positions. And that's what Mikel wants. He wants to be able to go into games and have the manager in the opposition change room second guessing what the starting 11 is going to be. And he's certainly got that now. And when the Champions League comes up with all the matches that are coming up, that's going to be a big, big thing for Arsenal. Not having that drop off. That's probably what cost Arsenal at the end of last season, wasn't it? The drop off when players got injured, the players who came in, they just weren't of similar standard. I think what Arsenal have got now, for now anyway, before any more injuries hit, the drop off isn't quite as big now. You can, if Havertz doesn't play, you can play Trossard. That's a fantastic option to have.
Yeah.
If Rice isn't there, you can play Partey as a holding midfielder, or you can play Jorginho. The drop off isn't massive, and I think that's a really good thing for Arsenal, and it's what the summer was about.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And it started off last season with Tierney and Zinchenko. Finally, there's competition in a position, and we've kind of built on that a little bit. And 920 of you in live chat, thanks for joining us this Monday evening. We've got Charles Watts here. We're going to talk about his book in just a second, Revolution: The Rise of Arsenal's Arteta's Arsenal. I've got all my markers in here. You guys are going to love this, and you'll love it because it starts at a very interesting point and it takes you to kind of, where we're at right now. But we'll get to that in just a minute because there are a few.
So can I just say something?
Yeah.
Why that book is so important for fans?
Yes. For Super Kev, you have the floor.
It's really important, fan base, to read this book because you get to understand a little bit of the mentality of our manager. It's all very well watching it at home or being in the stand and trying to second guess, but try and understand who that man is in our dugout, who that man is who's changing our football club. It's really important to get to understand him a little bit. You're not going to know him fully, but if you understand him a little bit, then you start to think, I get where he's going with this. I think it's really, Charles, honestly, I think it's really important. This is such a really important book for Arsenal fans to read. I really do.
Charles, I'm going to just, what? I was going to talk about the penalty decision and everything. We could get to that later, but let's just riff off here and get to what Kev is saying. And you can respond to him and we'll get stuck into some of my bits in the book that I love, but I want you to kind of let everyone know and not give too much away, of course, because we want everyone to buy the book, but go ahead, respond to Super Kev.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just been it was a lot of fun to write it. So, I mean, I've been there kind of the whole journey since Mikel was appointed, and just sort of going back over it all again. I'd forgotten how much has gone on, how much he's changed, where they were when he arrived, where they are now, and sort of just tracking it all and refreshing my memory about it. It was just a lot of fun and really eye-opening to see how much has changed in such a short space of time. And I don't think he gets the credit from a lot of people that he deserves for what he's done at the club. And he arrived at a time when Arsenal was crying out for someone to just come in, take the club in the sort of grasp of their hands and just change everything, because it needed to be done. And he just arrived at the right time and has managed to do it. And look, when I started writing it, I was talking to the publishers. They approached me in sort of February time to start writing it. And obviously we were at the time like, hopefully it ends with them winning the league. But it was never about the winning the league. Like, a lot of people said, why you should have waited. But the whole story, I think, of what's happened at Arsenal with Arteta it was more than about just winning a title. That would have been nice, but it was so much more than that. So we were always going to write it, whatever happened, it was always going to come out. And because I feel like it's a story that needs to be told, and it's a really interesting story for Arsenal fans to sort of get their sort of heads in and refresh their memories. And there's insights in there from behind the scenes of how it's all happened, speaking to people who was there. And hopefully everyone enjoys it. I'm looking forward to it coming out. Also, sort of nervous stroke excited about it coming out. Not long to go now, 10 days.
Well, I love the cover. I love the title, The Rise of Arteta's Arsenal. And I know I've already seen when I posted it, some people are saying, oh, how have you risen? And let opposing fans say what they say. And you just mentioned something in Super Kev also on the culture side of things. And one of the things that I really like how you separated the chapters as well in terms of the phases. And it felt like, even though there's a few pages, of course, on Trust the Process, it felt like the book was a homage to Trust the Process. And because sports is so built on instant gratification, results now, success now, win now. But Kev has said this a lot over the last few months and with our transfer window. I think we've built up to a win now mentality. And we're throwing the kitchen sink at this season, Charles. In your book as well, when you talk about, because you start on the Emery side of things, do you feel like we're ahead? A lot of this has been said. When we qualified for the Europa League, we were only supposed to get X. When we qualified for the Champions League, we were supposed to get Y. What's your take behind the scenes and how you've approached the book? Are we ahead of where the prediction was? Yeah.
I think last season was ahead of schedule. I think no one expected that to happen. And when everyone sat down and spoke about what they wanted from that season, it wasn't about a title challenge. So that was unexpected, and they were ahead of schedule for that point. I think where Arsenal are now, this season, this was the season that Mikel always had in his mind to really attack things. This is where he wanted them to really go for it. And so obviously it remains to be seen how it goes and how it all pans out. But yeah, I think last season they were certainly ahead of schedule, but I think right now this was always the season that he wanted to really have a good go at winning things. And so obviously it remains to be seen if it happens.
Okay, so there's a big portion of the book that talks about journey, and one of the things that Kev and I were really impressed about in All or Nothing was his articulation of journey experience. But then there was that question to, of course, Lacazette, and I really enjoyed that kind of part of the book. But, and I'm going to ask this to Kev as well, does the journey have to actually end in a destination that wins this season, Charles?
I don't think it has to. I think, it'd be nice to, but you can never, I don't think if you're going into any football season as a football club, you can say it has to end with that, because there's so many different things that can happen. There's a very big thing standing in the way in the name of Manchester City, which, is a very difficult obstacle to get around. They're the best team in the world. They're the treble winners. So, I don't. If Arsenal finish second and push Manchester City all the way again this season, I don't think you can look at that at the end of it and say it was a failure. They've failed. They've just come up against the best team in the world again, like they did last season. So it would be nice. And Mikel Arteta will absolutely be sitting there right now, wanting a trophy at the end of this season, wanting the league title at the end of this season, and wanting to have a really good go in the Champions League this season. But I don't think you can say if they don't win either of those two tournaments that it's going to be a failure this year. I think it all has to be taken into context, and it's all kind of relative.
Kev, what's your take?
That's the plan.
Yeah,
that's
go on, Kev. What's your take on it?
The plan is win now. The plan is to bring silverware. That's why I think the Community Shield was so important for this group of players. One, to get over the line against Manchester City, even on penalties, doesn't matter. Get over the line against Man City. And two is to go up them steps and feel that winning mentality of lifting some silverware. Yeah, it's not a big trophy, but it means something. So the plan is you put all that money in. The plan is to win. At the end of the season, if you don't win the trophy, then there's going to be disappointment, but you still can be on track. That doesn't necessarily mean you're off track. But again, Arsenal are in win now mode. You don't spend that sort of money if you're not expecting to win silverware, that's for sure, or to compete for silverware. So Mikel Arteta, yeah, there's going to be a bit more pressure on him now, but he's got a squad to manage.
It does seem that, there seems to be this massive patience for Chelsea's spend and Pochettino coming in and having been out of football and this, the narrative, Charles. I know you're in the media as well and you're a writer. Do you think that Arsenal are held to different standards compared to some of the other teams? You're a fan as well, but you're also a journalist and an author, broadcaster. Do you feel that we're under a different type of scrutiny, or he is?
I think everyone can feel like that about their team. To be honest, I think everyone's, you're so focused on your own team that you can kind of feel like other teams are being held to different standards. So I wouldn't say so. No, I think if you're asking that to a Chelsea fan right now, or a Tottenham fan, or a United fan, they'll probably all say the same thing, that they're being held to different standards. So I don't think Arsenal are. I think, look, this is Arsenal, though. This is a huge football club, one of England's most successful football clubs. They're always going to be held to certain standards, and they haven't won the league in 20 years. It's too long for Arsenal not to have gone without winning the league title. And that run needs to end. It has to end, and hopefully it does this season. And but I don't think they're being held to different standards. I wouldn't say that.
Okay, so let's talk about a player who is held to certain standards.
I do. I do.
I was waiting for you to jump back in.
100%. I think we're held to different standards. 100%. 100%.
In what way?
Can you imagine? Look at the amount of money Chelsea have spent. Imagine if that was Arsenal. Could you imagine? And they got the results that Chelsea got. What the press will be saying about Arsenal. So I do. I think even though Arsenal haven't started great, but we've been efficient, we've won 2 games, there's still question marks over Arsenal.
I think that's coming more.
There's still question marks.
Yeah, I feel like that's coming more from Arsenal fans than the media and the press, though, at the moment.
No, the media as well. There are question marks about, they're questioning Havertz. Arsenal fans are questioning Havertz as well. But the media aren't convinced. A lot of the media have said, they don't think Arsenal will be anywhere near it this season. So we're held to different standards.
I do believe that our captain is held to different standards. And there's something about that I kind of like, because as an Arsenal captain, when you have to follow in the footsteps of the Frank McClintocks of the world, or the Tony Adams and the Patrick Vieiras, and, you need to kind of hold up your end of the bargain. This player is so special. There's a part in the book, Charles, where you talk about Martin and Mikel and how very different they are as competitors. Polarizing, different ends of the spectrum almost. Martin, you could, put his feet up and chill, whereas Mikel is fiery and passionate. How is it these two competitors come together and work? Also today, Saka was holding the ball. Was this a smart? I'll get to that eventually, because I felt like Saka was going to take the penalty, but maybe the goalkeeper studied the penalty. Peter Drury talked about that, and then they handed the ball to Odegaard. So standards, whatever, the captain, talk me through it, Charles, all of it.
Well, Odegaard, yeah, I thought there was the book, actually. I talked to Andreas Georgeson, who said some really interesting comments about Martin in the book. I thought he was Arsenal set piece coach for Mikel's first full season. He's gone off to Sweden now. He works for Malmo. And I was asking him, talking to him about that connection, how Mikel and Martin work. And, he said some really interesting stuff about it. And like you said, very different characters, one very calm, composed in Martin Odegaard, one very hot and fiery at times in Mikel, but they just work together. And I think it was always, when you watch those two together in a pitch, it's really interesting. Even before Martin was captain, he was always going to be skipper. You could tell he was Mikel's man on the pitch. Whenever Mikel had a message to send out, if it was Martin Odegaard, he'd call over. Then Martin would go off and tell everyone else. He was always the guy on the pitch. He was always
before he was captain.
Yeah, before he was captain,
Yeah.
It was. You could just see it was. You could just see it was going to happen. That he was the natural next captain for Arsenal, and he's just a mercurial footballer. I love him. I really do. I think he's an absolutely fabulous player. His performances last season were just on another level. I think Arsenal are so well. No, I wouldn't say Arsenal are so lucky to have him, because it's Arsenal. So he's lucky to have Arsenal. But I think we're all lucky to be able to watch a player like Martin Odegaard play for Arsenal, who's only going to get better. And Mikel fought for him. He could have signed a couple of other players, but he waited for Martin Odegaard in that season. After he went back to Real Madrid after the loan spell. Wasn't clear if Arsenal were going to sign him or not. There was changes at Real Madrid. They were waiting before making a decision. Arsenal had a choice to make. Do we go for Buendia, who they were talking to, or do we wait? They waited and they waited, and it was very much worth the wait, because £35 million in the modern age, when you look at the transfer fees that clubs are paying for all these players, and then you think Arsenal got Odegaard for £35 million, just an absolutely magnificent piece of transfer business.
Yeah, no. Kev said last season, he kept reminding people, he goes, we stole him from them, Soph. We stole him. And we certainly did. And Real Madrid fans, reeled from that too. We totally are huge Martin fans here. We have been. And we talk about that passion, and we saw early, Charles, in Arteta's season, got yellow carded last week. Is there a chance, because you talk about passion a lot in the book as well, and there's no doubt that he has that. Is there a chance that his passion might blur the lines of in-game management?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. I don't think I often get asked that question. Does it impact the players? And that was quite a big talking point last season, wasn't it? Are his antics on the touchline impacting the players at all? And I just didn't buy into it at all. I think the players like it, and I think the fans feed off it, and I just don't see it as an issue. A lot of people called him out on it. Well, one in particular called him out on it throughout last season, a media pundit, who I'm not going to name because he's not worth the time, and just kept on going, and again created this big agenda about Mikel Arteta that I just don't think fans give a crap about. I think Arsenal fans love it, and they love to see the manager have that passion on the touchline. They love to see him pushing the team on and demanding so much from their players. It's what they've wanted at Arsenal for a long time. That's going back to me talking about how Arsenal needed someone just to take the club by the grasp of the neck and sort of bring it back up again above water. And he's done that by the way he acts, by the way he demands what he demands. And so I don't think it's an issue at all.
Okay, so Kev, one of the things there's a lot of little kind of nuggets in the book, and I love these kinds of nuggets. Kind of in the beginning of the book, there's a bit where Charles mentions how Jack Wilshere called Mikel teacher's pet. And I know that you and I have talked in the past, even when you were coming up as a youngster, you had to earn everything. Viv Anderson, the most ruthless tipper of all time, cleaning boots. all of these great little anecdotes
Not
with
ruthless,
players.
the tight tipper. He's tight. Never mind ruthless. He was tight.
It was tight. He did give you like a little bit. You had to wait till the very end of the season, though, didn't he?
Even to this day, Charles, he's asking for the money back. He's saying I owe him money.
It's so great.
Good fun. Good fun.
I know, and I love these little stories and stuff. And there's this kind of ruthlessness, maybe that he even showed as a player, maybe an unforgiving part of him eventually when he became Arsenal captain, Super Kev. But teacher's pet, Jack Wilshere now, of course, working with Mikel Arteta. You got Per Mertesacker, ex-players. Kev, you're an ex-player. He doesn't seem to be as bothered as Wenger maybe was with the influence of ex-players. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that. Maybe Charles can help us answer that question too. But I like his fearlessness, if you like. He doesn't seem to be as intimidated. I wasn't keen, Charles, on too much of the Wenger statue stuff because they didn't want him to interfere with Mikel's journey. Do you guys, you know what I mean? Like, I respect what Wenger did, and I like that he's got a statue, but don't interfere with the new journey and the progression we're making. Don't remind too much people of the past, the success, yes, but the latter 10 years, not so much. So I don't know where I'm going with this. I started off with teacher's pet, and now I'm here, Kev.
Well, let me tell you this then, Soph. I think it wouldn't be right of Mikel Arteta to acknowledge Arsene Wenger. And if that was going to upset the apple cart, then it would be built on sand anyway. Because acknowledging someone like Arsene Wenger, who made Mikel Arteta captain, Mikel Arteta's come out himself and said he wants Arsene Wenger to be part of the football club, which is great. I think he deserves his statue. I think we all know he deserves a statue. But again, this is all part of, which is probably in the book, why Mikel Arteta was recruited to come in. Because that dressing room has to be so tight and strong that whatever happens outside on the periphery, it doesn't wobble the dressing room. The dressing room, it just keeps on motoring forward. That's the name of the game. It keeps on getting better and improving. And Arsene Wenger getting a statue, we haven't missed a beat. Yeah, we're not playing as we did at the start of last season. But you know what? We're still winning. That's the name of the game. The key is win football matches. And that's what we're doing. And Mikel Arteta, again, not only is he's not just managing maybe 11 players or 14 players, now he's got a big squad to manage. And it's a tougher job. It is a tougher job now. So, guys, I've said it before, he's going to need the fans more than ever. You're going to need the fans more than last season. This Arsenal squad, I tell you, we're going to need the fans more.
Charles, Kev's been kind of adamant on that about needing the fans more this season and stuff like that. But just to kind of like round off that comment regarding Arteta and, you know, what we've kind of just talked about. Is it unfair of me to say I don't want Wenger around this season? I'm sorry, I just don't.
I don't think it's unfair. I don't think Wenger will be around much this season. I don't think Wenger really wants to be. I think he fully understands that maybe his presence would be a little bit of a distraction, and that's why he was so keen to stay away at first. But Mikel wants Wenger around. He probably doesn't want him around all the time, but he wants him to be a part of it. You know, Mikel pushed really hard to fix the broken relationships to get to the stage where we are now, where Arsene actually feels comfortable to come back. And we saw him at the game at West Ham on Boxing Day, and then obviously with the statue now as well. But, you know, there wasn't that big of fanfare about the statue. There wasn't, you know, Arsene basically just walked out, had a look at it, and then walked back in, and it was all done in-house. I think that was a very, you know, I think Arsene, that's how he wanted it to happen, because he understands he doesn't want to be a distraction. But, you know, Mikel absolutely has played a big part in getting Arsene back to the club. And just around London Colney, you know, one of the first things he did was put a big picture of Arsene Wenger right at the entrance of London Colney. So when the players walk through the doors into the building every morning, one of the first things they think, well, the first thing they see is Arsene Wenger with his arm up like that. And then I can't remember the exact quote, but an Arsene Wenger quote next to it. You know, Mikel wanted that there because he felt that Arsenal needed to be around, that Arsenal had lost that. And that was one of
I
the
agree with that part. I totally agree with that. I just, I feel that, and this is where I'm coming from on this. Sir Alex Ferguson being in the stands every single game for United, I don't think has helped them. Super Kev thinks I'm crazy thinking that a little bit. Is like, no, players go, they got to go play football. But I find it intimidating. He's not only the most successful Manchester United manager of all time, he may be the greatest manager of all time. And to have him hanging over you every single match, reminding you of the greatness, Charles, I just not sure that's helped Manchester United.
I don't think it's particularly helps some managers, perhaps. I'm not sure the players probably think about it when they're on the pitch, but certainly managers, he's just always there, that looming presence. And if things go wrong and it suddenly flicks to him in the crowd shaking his head, then that becomes a story, doesn't it? And but Arsenal is just that, it's very different because Arsenal was not, that wasn't going to happen at Arsenal, a lot of reason because of the way it all ended with Arsene Wenger, and he felt very hurt.
You do have a big, there's a chapter in the book about respect, and, and Kev, I like the way the respect kind of, and Charles, you can correct me if I'm on my memory, but the respect kind of goes from a little bit, Emery days, but into the Ozil, Aubameyang, Pepe time. And Pepe is a player that looks like he might end up staying. Okay, fine. But respect is a huge thing. I get the Wenger respect from Arteta. I want Arteta to have a clear path and a journey as a manager without any of the rearview mirror syndrome around him. Sport is so finite. The times that you have to create success are few and far between. So talk me through this respect that works both ways, maybe. His respect for the club, which you talk about in the book, the old manager, but then the players having to respect him and his demands of that.
Well, it was the first press conference that we ever walked into when he was appointed. He came out there and he just laid it on the line straight away in the very first press conference. Said, if you don't follow my rules, you're going to go. And, he knew that that's what was needed at Arsenal to get them back on the right track again. And it's the last few years have all been about that. That's why we've seen the players who haven't respected him and haven't respected his values and his non-negotiables, which are obviously such a famous phrase when he first walked through the door, they've all gone, straight away. Matteo Guendouzi, bang, out. Aubameyang, out. That's a club captain, the player that Mikel had just pushed for to give a massive new 300 grand a week contract. As soon as he stepped out of line, that didn't matter. All of that didn't matter. He was out. And, that's Mikel's worked so hard to create this dressing room environment where it is all based on respect and everyone's pulling in the same direction. He doesn't want anything to rock the boat. And if you don't follow those rules, then you're gone. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much money you earn. You're gone. And, Arsenal needed that. When the players didn't respect Unai Emery, and Emery's a great manager. He's proven himself as a great manager. He doesn't need me to say that, or anyway, his record speaks for himself. But at Arsenal, there was just a big problem with it, that he didn't have the respect to the dressing room. I was down there just before he got sacked. It was the day before he got sacked. We were down there for an open training session. We got to see 15 minutes. And normally they're completely worthless exercises because you sit there, the manager takes the players off as far away to the far pitch at London Colney that we can't see anything. But this day was different. You could just see the relationship. The players just had nothing. There was nothing there between Emery and the players. Emery just stood on his own with his clipboard. No one went near him. There was no acknowledgements. And we all just stood there and were like, he's literally a dead man walking. It was just so obvious that everything had broken and that the players didn't respect him and that his time was up. And obviously he left 2 days later. It was so obvious at that point it had gone. But what you see now, and it's what people have always asked me, and I say it in the book, why in the dark times under Arteta, when results weren't coming, why did you still believe that he was the right man? And it was because everyone I spoke to, everything that I saw suggested that even though the results weren't coming, everyone believed in him still, and that he would turn things round. Whereas with Emery, no one believed he was going to turn it around. They all wanted him gone. And that was, I never felt that with Arteta, and the players never felt that with Arteta.
And Kev, sometimes you always talk as well about the weight of the badge for a player, but also the weight of the badge for a manager can work both ways, right? And it feels like there was something in this, because at the beginning of Charles's book, when Jack talked about, teacher's pet or whatever, and I want to ask this to both of you, and Kev, I'll start with you. As I was reading Charles's book, which by the way, you guys are going to love. I just put the cover up on you Charles, is it ready to go? Is it ready to order now? Because I'm being inundated with DMs on
Yeah, it's all pre-order.
Okay.
You can pre-order it now. It comes out on the 31st, but you can pre-order it now. And yeah,
Okay, great.
They'll find the links on my Twitter or X, whatever you call it now.
Okay, cool. I'm starting to believe that Arteta believed there was an inevitability to him becoming Arsenal manager. He may have been in La Masia. He may have had this Barcelona background. His mentor is Pep. He played for Everton. Legend there too. But Super Kev, the more I read the book, the more I felt there was an inevitability that he believes this is his club and this was his job. And there's a really good bit in the book where Charles talks about the second time around, like that the club, no hesitation, that was the guy, that's who they wanted. And maybe there was an inevitability on both ends. Maybe Arsenal seeing it as a mistake that they didn't hire him at the time. What's your take on Mikel? It feels like he feels he's an Arsenal. With all the Barcelona and Everton background, it feels like he feels he's an Arsenal guy.
I think it sometimes comes down to connection. Mikel Arteta, obviously, before he played for Arsenal, had no connection to Arsenal. Then you come to Arsenal, you play for the club, you win with the club. All of a sudden, you're captain. You get a connection with the football club. And Arsenal, once you connect with the football club and you understand it, it's hard to turn your back on the football club. And you can imagine, and I'm sure this is covered in the book, Charles, where he's in the Manchester City dugout and he's looking at what's going on at Arsenal. Some of them performances against Man City, no life in it, no energy in it. The team and management not being able to rely on players, and he's there and he's seeing Manchester City just scheme and work their way and wipe the floor with Arsenal. So again, he's got that connection. He's probably thinking, you know what, I could do a job. I could do a job there. I know he knows what's needed. He knows what's required. He knows the demands of a winning squad. And you when you know the demands of a winning squad, and then you look at Arsenal's squad and you don't see it, then you exactly know what's needed. So I just think this is something that you could say is written in the stars or whatever. The hierarchy, not necessarily that they got it wrong, because Unai Emery is a more than capable manager. It's just the timing. The timing was wrong because the work that needed to be done had to be a lot more ruthless than Unai Emery was willing to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, maybe Emery's not a bottom up guy. As you can see with Villa, he came in, they gave him a few goodbyes quick, and he was able to fix things. Arsenal needed gutting definitely from the bottom up, because when you're a bigger club and you've won on the scale that we have, is totally different. Charles, what do you want people to know about your book that I may not have asked or shared? I really thoroughly enjoyed reading it, and we're going to give a couple away. And we're going to... Did we come up with a question? We'll do... if not, we're going to do it on another show, but we're going to give a couple away, signed copies, courtesy of Charles Watts here. You guys have loved and enjoyed his work over the years. Charles, what do you want Arsenal fans to know that you unearthed as you were writing this book?
What do I want them to know? I just want them to know the story, because we've all been there. We've all kind of lived it. But this is a kind of behind the scenes take of what it's been like, with, insight from people who've been there, who have been part of it. And I think it's just a really important story of a really remarkable time at Arsenal. This covers so much. You go back the COVID years, behind closed doors football, the Özil, the Aubameyang, the Guendouzi, it's just so much has gone on in such a short space of time. And I think it's just, I just think it's a story that needs telling or needed telling. And I hope I've told it well, and I hope people like it. I'll find out soon enough. But I hope people enjoy it, and I'm sure they will. My dad likes it anyway.
That's awesome.
That's a good judge. That's a good judge.
That was
also, do you have 71? Because are you like me? Are you a 70? The best year to be born in 71, the double winning season.
Like I said, I'm at my dad's house today, and that was a present that I got him for his 71st birthday. And
I love that.
So it's obviously the 71 kit, sort of the double kit, but it's signed by the current players of that time. Probably about 6 years ago now. So
very cool.
It's a birthday present I got him.
Very nice. Do you promise to come back and do some Q&As with the Gooners once they've read the book and we get some, because a lot of our listeners will definitely get the book, and there's still so much in the book that I want to talk to you about.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think people are going to be bored of me after about that during the next.
No, they're not. They can't be bored.
Popping up everywhere, trying to plug it. And but yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Okay, because also I love this. You mentioned your dad, and I know you guys know that a tremendous amount of work goes into when you're writing a book, but it's so hard. Having been in the entertainment industry for so many years, I just commend someone for making a film or writing a book. It is so hard to do this. And I always love to see who the author writes that special message to. And yours is, to Dad, without you, none of this would have been possible. Don't forget the Kit Kats.
Yeah, that's a bit of a thing when we go to Arsenal. We always have these Kit Kats at half time. And it's like the last words as we leave the house. It's always like, have you got the Kit Kats? Don't forget the Kit Kats. Yeah,
I love that.
A bit of a family joke there.
I love that. Did your dad like watching Kev play? Did you enjoy watching Super Kev play, this guy?
Absolutely. That was when I first go. My first game that I went with my dad, because my dad grew up, he's a Holloway boy. He grew up at Arsenal. So, and I went, my first game was, I think it was right, January 89. It was basically, it was a title winning season at Anfield. I went at Sheffield Wednesday. It was 1-1 at Highbury. Smudger scored. Was it Merce? Merce scored 1-1. And then, and then we got season ticket for the first year of season ticket was 91. Obviously when Kev had just broken in and was doing his thing. And yeah, it was just a brilliant time for me, young kid going every single week up at Highbury, standing in a junior gunners section at that point, seeing all these players as strikers. And it's just a fantastic time. The 91 season was brilliant. I loved it. I loved the 92 season. When we talked about that Crystal Palace goal you scored that season, if that had gone on for another month, we'd have won the title that year. Brilliant football. And the goal, I think about the Sheffield, the 7-1 when you came off the bench.
It's down to George Graham. He didn't put me in early enough, Charles. That George Graham.
That guy.
It was unbelievable. We were just scoring amazing goals every game. We were winning 4, 5, 7. It was just a remarkable second half of the season. It was so much fun to be there.
And that's what I'm expecting,
Brilliant.
Charles, from this Arsenal side. I'm expecting it to click at some stage. And it's maybe not click now, but just keep winning. And then when it does click, but it's going to click for the squad, not just because you look at Man City, it clicks for the squad. Don't matter who plays, they click. For us, we're not quite there yet. But I've got one question to ask you, Charles. Where were you in 89? Where did you watch the game?
I watched it. I was on holiday with my mate who lived around the corner, Robert Butler, his name was, and I was on holiday with his family. I was on holiday with his family in a caravan somewhere in England. I have no idea where. And he was a Liverpool fan.
Wow.
And I watched that game, and this is no lie. I was 8 at that time, and when Mickey scored, I celebrating a goal, I did so much damage to the caravan that when they sold it a year later, they had to take about 200 quid off the price because of the damage that I'd done to the caravan celebrating the goal. That is a 100% true story.
Oh, it's so awesome. I'm glad they didn't go after your folks for the money as well.
A bill. Yeah, a bill.
Oh man, Friday night live game. Friday night, like that was so weird, wasn't it? At the time as well, like a Friday night game live on TV.
All the marbles,
wow,
everything
what
in the middle
night.
of the table. Yeah,
that was a crazy night, and you know, I think this team definitely, you know, has hopefully the manager, and you know, we have a squad that can maybe start creating those new memories for us. Because you know my saying, Kev, I only use the rearview mirror to check my lipstick. So I'm already over last season. I'm ready for a title. Charles, what are your expectations for the Arsenal this season? We'll get you out on this one. What do you think will happen in the league, in the cups, and in Europe? What do you think?
I've predicted Arsenal going to win the league. I think they've got a really good chance to do it this season. I think obviously it was so close last year, but I really think they've got the chance. The Timber injury is horrible and it's a big blow, and I think it is going to have a big impact on Arsenal's season. But I still think they've got enough to really push Manchester City this year, and I think they would have learned from last season, and that might help get them over the line. So for me, that's the absolute priority is the Premier League. I'd love them to go deep into the Champions League. I think they've got the capability to go deep into the Champions League. Whether they can win it, that might be a step too far. You never know. It's cup competition. If you get a bit of luck, you can win it. But you know, I'd love to see him really show, because it's one thing that Mikel's got a bit of a question mark hanging over him, I think, is knockout competitions in Europe. He hasn't done great in that at all
since winning the FA Cup as well.
Arsenal, and so I'd like to see him show that he can go and really put a team out in Europe to compete and do well in it. So, yeah, for me, I'd say Premier League, I honestly think they can win it, and I'm predicting they will. Champions League, I'd like to see them go far, and the Cups, whatever happens in the Cups happens, really. But those are the two competitions for me.
A tiny one for both of you. Do you think it's easier to win the Champions League than the Premier League right now?
I say so.
Is it easier? I think you need experience in Europe. I really do. Champions League. Very rarely you see somebody who's not won it just one season go and win it. It's very rare.
Tottenham were one game away from winning the Champions League.
But they never won it, though, did they?
They were the one game.
That's how easy it was, Super Kev.
The biggest nightmare moment was 90 minutes away. It was 90 minutes away.
Charles, how do you think it was for me? Who did they play in the final? Liverpool. So I couldn't win either way. I couldn't win. Honestly, I turned everything off. I weren't watching anything.
Listen, I remember saying to Kev, it was the worst night of my life, and Kev always saying, "Soph, come on." It's like the two worst teams for me in the history of football.
It was double for me. I'd love Arsenal to win the title, obviously. I want silverware. That's what I want. I want silverware. The team are built to win now. So let's go for it. And let's see what trophies. First one to come. If we can get in the Carabao Cup and win that, that's the first one. Let's go and do that if we can. And then we move on. Because you know what? You just never know, Charles. You never know what's going to happen. A couple of injuries, key injuries elsewhere, could make life a little bit different for Arsenal. So fingers crossed. And I think we might go again in the transfer market just before the end of this window.
Wow. Well, Charles, do you think we're going to bring anyone in before the window shuts? I'm ready for it to shut.
It depends on what they do in terms of selling players in the next week or so. I think if they can get a couple of people, if they bring in big money for Balogun, if they can get Tierney out and potentially get some money or guarantee getting some money next summer for him, I think they might look at what's on the table. I don't think they'll panic. They won't do anything stupid just for the sake of it. But if something's there to be done, then, I think they would do it. But they need to get a couple of players out first. I think that's the key thing now.
Good stuff. And I like this from Mark. I want a Charles book, a Highbury Squad coin, Champions League and PL title in that order. We like that. All right. So Charles has promised to come back. You can find Charles. Do I have this right? Your handle on social, Charles_Watts. The book is available to buy on all platforms currently, Charles. Pre-ordering?
Pre-order, yeah, out on the 31st. Obviously, we've got the big launch night at the Tollington on the 31st. We're Gunner Blog's going to be joining me for a big sort of Q&A part of the night as well. You can buy books there on the day, and I'm going to have for a couple hours be doing sign-ins there as well before the Q&A, and then even after that we'll be doing some more sign-ins as well. So get yourself down to Tolly on the 31st if you're in and around North London. It should be a really good, fun night of Arsenal chat. And
Brilliant.
If not, pre-order. Links are on all my socials as well.
Absolutely love that. Brilliant stuff. So I'm weaving up a question, a tough one. So on the next show, I'm gonna give out a question. I'm gonna work on it with Charles because I don't want it to be easy. I'm gonna figure out a methodology here, Super Kev. We're gonna give away a couple of signed books. And we wish you all the best with the book, Charles. It really is a great read. If you're a Gooner, if you're a new fan, an old fan, no matter when or how you became an Arsenal fan, you will love this book. And we wish you the very best with it. Charles, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sophie.
Cheers, Charles.
I've hogged you for so much longer than I said I would. I'm so sorry. I hope your hot cocoa's ready for you, but thank you for spending the time with us. And I know everyone who's going to listen to this on replay on iTunes, Spotify, and they'll love it and enjoy it. And to all 900 of you who joined us in live chat this evening, thank you so much. We have more good stuff coming. We've got James from Sky Sports on tomorrow night to talk about his time spent with Mikel Arteta. Of course, we have to pay homage to our Lionesses who made the World Cup final, unfortunately did not win. But Demian and I will be on deck, hopefully with Susie Rack from The Guardian to talk about that. And we have Mr. Nick Ramsdale coming back on the show this week as well. Super Kev, I hand it over to you to close for us.
Okay, everybody, listen. Absolute legend who's wrote a book, Get to Know Your Manager. So go out and order the book. Squaddies, Sophie, hostess with the mostest. Another great show for you. Monday Madness. It's all over. Tell your loved ones you love them. And at ease. Arsenal won today. At ease, Squaddies. At ease.
Damn it. Button came quick. Here we go. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.